December 20th, 1968, a quiet road, just outside Vallejo, California. Two teenagers parked their car near a place known as Lake Herman Road. It was supposed to be an ordinary Friday night. A first date, a peaceful evening, a future filled with dreams. But someone else was already watching. Within minutes, gunshots shattered the silence. When police arrived, the couple lay on the cold ground. One was already dead, the other died shortly afterward. There were no witnesses, no clear motive, no robbery, no warning. At first, detectives believed it was just another tragic double murder. They had no idea this crime would become the beginning of one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. A mystery that would terrify California, challenge the FBI, and leave investigators searching for answers for more than half a century. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer. Welcome to The Final Clue. Today, we begin a journey into one of the most chilling unsolved murder cases in American history. Unlike many serial killers, the Zodiac didn't just murder. He wrote letters, he sent coded messages, he challenged police, he mocked newspapers, and he claimed that no one would ever catch him, even today. No one has ever been convicted of being the Zodiac Killer. So who was he, and how did one anonymous murderer become a legend? Let's return to where it all began. Chapter 1. California in the late 1960s. The late 1960s were a time of enormous change in America. California symbolized freedom, music, hope, and opportunity. Young couples often drove into quiet rural areas seeking privacy. One such place was Lake Herman Road, a lonely stretch of highway surrounded by open land. After sunset, it became almost completely deserted. Few streetlights, very little traffic, exactly the kind of place where no one would hear a gunshot. It would soon become infamous. Chapter 2. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. On the evening of December 20th, 1968, 17-year-old David Faraday picked up 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen for what was believed to be their first official date. Friends later described them as kind, quiet, and excited about the future. Neither had any reason to fear that night. They stopped near Lake Herman Road sometime after 10 p.m. It seemed like the perfect place to talk, to laugh, to enjoy the evening. But somewhere nearby, someone else had arrived. Someone whose identity would remain a mystery for decades. Chapter 3. The Attack. Exactly what happened next may never be fully known. Based on the evidence, investigators believe another vehicle approached the teenagers' car. At some point, David and Betty Lou got out of the vehicle. Then, without warning, shots rang out. David Faraday was shot at close range. Betty Lou attempted to run. She never made it far. The killer fired multiple shots. She collapsed just a short distance from the car. Within moments, the attacker disappeared into the darkness. No valuables were taken. No obvious motive was found. Only silence remained. Chapter 4. The first investigation. When officers arrived, they treated the crime as a local double homicide. Detectives interviewed friends, neighbors, odd classmates, anyone who might explain why two teenagers had been targeted. They considered every possibility: a robbery, a jealous rival, a personal dispute. But nothing fit. The victims had no known enemies, no history of violence, no reason anyone could identify for such a brutal attack. The investigation quickly reached a dead end, and with no suspect, the case slowly began to grow cold. Chapter 5. The Mistake. No one noticed at the time. No one connected the Lake Herman Road murders to anything larger. Police believed they were investigating one isolated crime, but history would prove otherwise, because 6 months later, the killer would strike again. This time, he would leave behind a survivor, and everything investigators believed about the first murders would change forever. Chapter 6. 6 months of silence. After the murders of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, The investigation stalled. Weeks turned into months. Police followed every lead they could find. Friends, neighbors, former classmates, even strangers who happened to be near Lake Herman Road were questioned. But every lead ended the same way. Nothing. The killer had vanished. To investigators, it appeared to be an isolated crime. No one imagined that the murderer was preparing to strike again. Chapter 7, July 4th, 1969. America celebrated Independence Day. Fireworks exploded across California. Families gathered for barbecues. Music echoed through neighborhoods. But just outside Vallejo, another young couple was parked in a quiet area known as Blue Rock Springs Park. 22-year-old Darlene Farron and 19-year-old Michael Majot sat talking inside their car. The night felt peaceful. Then, a vehicle slowly entered the parking area. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The car stopped briefly, then drove away. Michael and Darlene thought it was over. They were wrong. Chapter 8, the second attack. A few minutes later, the same vehicle returned. It pulled in behind the couple's car. The driver stepped out, holding a flashlight. Michael later told investigators he believed it was a police officer. The bright light shined directly into their faces. Then, without saying a word, the man pulled out a handgun. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through the vehicle. Michael cried out in pain. Darlene was critically wounded. The attacker turned and walked away. But then, something terrifying happened. Hearing movement inside the car, the gunman came back. He fired several more shots at the helpless victims. Then, he disappeared into the darkness. Chapter 9. A survivor speaks unlike the first attack. This time, someone survived. Michael Majot was rushed to the hospital. Despite his injuries, he managed to describe the attacker. He remembered a white male, heavy-set, around 5 feet 8 inches tall, possibly weighing close to 200 pounds. The killer had not worn a mask, but the attack happened quickly, at night under poor lighting. Even so, Michael's testimony became the first real description investigators had ever received. It wasn't enough to identify the killer, but it gave detectives something they desperately needed: a starting point. Chapter 10. The phone call. Less than an hour later, the Vallejo Police Department received a shocking telephone call. A calm male voice spoke slowly. He said, "I want to report a double murder." The caller then described the attack at Blue Rock Springs. But he didn't stop there. He also claimed responsibility for the murders on Lake Herman Road 6 months earlier. Then, he quietly hung up. Police immediately traced the call. It had been made from a public payphone, only a short distance from the police station itself. The killer had risked coming close to law enforcement just to make sure they heard his message. It was a chilling display of confidence. Chapter 11. Connecting the cases for the first time. Detectives realized something terrifying. The murders on Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs were almost certainly connected. The same method: young couples, parked vehicles. Late at night, no robbery, no clear motive. Now, there was something even more disturbing. The killer wanted recognition. He wanted police to know who was responsible, and soon, he would demand that the entire country know his name. Chapter 12. The letters begin on August 1st, 1969. 3 major newspapers in Northern California received nearly identical letters. Each contained shocking details about the murders, details that had never been released publicly. The writer claimed responsibility. He challenged police and included 1/3 of a strange coded message, a cipher. He demanded the newspapers publish the letters on their front pages. If they refused, he threatened to continue killing. The public was horrified. Investigators now understood. They were no longer hunting an ordinary murderer. They were facing someone who craved attention, someone who wanted fear to spread across California. And for the first time, The mysterious writer signed his letter with a name that would become infamous around the world. This is the Zodiac speaking. Chapter 13. A Letter No One Expected. It was the morning of August 3rd, 1969. Editors at 3 major California newspapers opened their mail. Inside, each found an almost identical handwritten letter. The writer claimed responsibility for the murders at Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs. But there was something even more disturbing. Each envelope contained 1/3 of a strange coded message. The writer demanded that all 3 newspapers publish the cipher on their front pages. If they refused, he threatened to kill again. California was about to meet a murderer unlike any it had ever seen. Chapter 14. The Zodiac Symbol. At the bottom of each letter, the writer signed with an unusual symbol, a circle, crossed by vertical and horizontal lines. Today, it is recognized around the world as the Zodiac Killer's symbol. Investigators immediately realized something. The killer wasn't simply committing murders. He was creating an identity, a character, a legend. He wanted people to fear the symbol, even before they knew who stood behind it. Chapter 15. The 408 Symbol Cipher. The 3 coded pages formed a single message. A total of 408 symbols, letters, shapes, strange markings, some symbols repeated. Others appeared only once. Police quickly asked the public for help. Professional cryptographers tried to solve it. Military code experts examined it. Even the FBI became involved. Days passed. No one could read it. The cipher seemed impossible, until an unexpected couple decided to try. Chapter 16. The schoolteachers who cracked the code in Salinas, California. A high school teacher named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty Hardin spent evenings studying the mysterious symbols. They believed the killer had made one mistake. He probably began with common English words. Working together, they slowly matched patterns, letter by letter, word by word. After nearly a week, the impossible happened. The code began to reveal its message. The Hardins had cracked the Zodiac's first cipher. Chapter 17. The Chilling Message. The decoded message shocked investigators. The writer claimed he enjoyed killing people. He described it as something he found exciting. The message also contained bizarre references to the afterlife and collecting slaves for the next world. But detectives noticed something unusual. The killer never revealed his real name. Near the end of the cipher, he wrote that he would not give his identity, because police might try to stop him. Many experts later believed that the final section of the cipher may have been intentionally scrambled or left incomplete, making it impossible to determine whether it ever contained meaningful information. Chapter 18. Fear spreads across California. Once newspapers published the decoded message, panic spread. Parents warned their children not to go out at night. Young couples avoided isolated roads. Police departments increased patrols. Telephone lines were flooded with tips. Some callers claimed they knew the Zodiac. Others confessed to crimes they hadn't committed. Investigators had more information than ever before, but very little of it brought them closer to the truth. Chapter 19. The FBI enters the case. As public fear intensified, local police sought help from federal authorities. The FBI began collecting evidence and comparing the Zodiac letters with other crimes. Handwriting experts examined every stroke of the pen. Fingerprint specialists searched the envelopes. Forensic teams analyzed the paper and ink. Every clue mattered. Yet, despite the growing mountain of evidence, one question remained unanswered. Who was hiding behind the Zodiac symbol? Chapter 20. The killer wasn't finished while investigators worked to decode the letters. The Zodiac was already planning his next move. He had achieved exactly what he wanted. The newspapers were talking about him. The public feared him. Police were chasing him. And now, he believed he was untouchable. Only weeks later, he would attack again. But this time, his victims would see his face and one survivor would provide investigators with their clearest description yet. Chapter 21. A New Target by September 1969. California was living in fear. The Zodiac Killer had already murdered. He had written letters. He had challenged police. He had even created his own symbol. But investigators believed they understood one thing. The killer attacked without warning, then disappeared. They were wrong, because on September 27, 1969, the Zodiac would commit his most terrifying attack yet, and this time, he would speak directly to his victims. Chapter 22. A Peaceful Afternoon. It was a warm Saturday afternoon at Lake Berryessa, California. Families enjoyed picnics. Boats floated peacefully across the water. College students relaxed along the shoreline. Among them were Brian Hartnell, a 20-year-old college student, and Cecilia Shepard, a 22-year-old student. They had chosen a quiet hillside near the lake. It seemed like the perfect place to spend the afternoon. Nothing appeared unusual until a lone figure appeared in the distance. Chapter 23. The Strange Man. The man walked slowly toward them. At first, Brian believed he was another visitor. But as the stranger came closer, something felt terribly wrong. He was wearing a large black hood, dark sunglasses, and a strange homemade bib covering his chest. On it was a white circle with a crossed symbol, the same symbol that had appeared in the Zodiac's letters. The man held a gun in a calm voice. He claimed he was an escaped prisoner. He said he needed money and a car to flee to Mexico. Brian and Cecilia cooperated. They believed if they stayed calm, they would survive. Chapter 24. The Betrayal. The masked man ordered Brian to tie Cecilia's hands. Then, he tied Brian himself. The couple thought the robbery would soon be over. Instead, the stranger pulled out a knife. Without warning, he attacked. Brian was stabbed repeatedly. Cecilia desperately tried to escape. She too was stabbed multiple times. Then, just as suddenly as he had arrived, the attacker walked away, leaving both victims fighting for their lives. Chapter 25. The Message on the Car. But the Zodiac wasn't finished. Before leaving, he walked to Brian Hartnell's car. Using a black marker, he wrote on the driver's door the dates of his previous attacks: Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, and beneath them, a new date: September 27, 1969. Then, he drew the now famous Zodiac symbol. It was his signature, his way of telling police, "I was here." Chapter 26. The Survivor. Miraculously, Brian Hartnell survived. Despite severe injuries, he gave investigators an incredibly detailed account. He described the hood, the symbol, the killer's calm voice, his careful movements. Brian said the attacker seemed organized, controlled, almost emotionless. Unlike crimes driven by sudden rage, this attack appeared planned. Every detail strengthened investigators' belief. They were hunting someone extremely dangerous. Chapter 27. Another phone call. About an hour after the attack, the Napa County Sheriff's Office received a phone call. The caller calmly reported the stabbing, then added another chilling sentence: "I'm the one who did it." The phone was traced to a nearby payphone. Just as before, the Zodiac had contacted police himself. He wanted them to know. He wanted the fear. He wanted the attention. Chapter 28. Cecilia's Final Hours. Cecilia Shepard was rushed to the hospital. Doctors fought to save her life. Investigators interviewed her while she was still conscious. She described the attack, the costume, the voice, everything she could remember. Sadly, 2 days later, Cecilia died from her injuries. Brian Hartnell became the only survivor able to tell the full story of the Lake Berryessa attack. His testimony remains one of the most important pieces of evidence in the Zodiac investigation. Chapter 29. A Killer Grows Bolder. The attack at Lake Berryessa shocked investigators. The Zodiac had changed his methods. He no longer relied only on firearms. He confronted his victims face to face. He spoke to them. He wore a terrifying costume designed to create fear. And he left behind his signature. The investigation now faced a disturbing reality. The Zodiac wasn't just killing, he was performing. Every crime seemed carefully designed to terrify an entire state. Chapter 30, October 11th, 1969. By October, the Zodiac Killer had already terrorized Northern California. Police believed they understood his pattern. He targeted young couples in isolated places, far away from witnesses. But on the night of October 11th, 1969, everything changed. Instead of driving into the countryside, the Zodiac entered the heart of San Francisco. Bright streetlights, busy neighborhoods, passing cars, police patrols. He was no longer hiding, he was becoming bolder. Chapter 31, Paul Stine. 29-year-old Paul Stine worked as a taxi driver. Like many drivers, he expected just another ordinary shift. Late that evening, a passenger entered his cab. The destination seemed routine. There was nothing unusual about the request. Paul drove toward the upscale Presidio Heights neighborhood. When the taxi reached its destination, something happened that no one expected. The passenger pulled out a handgun. A single shot echoed through the quiet street. Paul Stine died almost instantly. Chapter 32, The Witnesses. Unlike every previous attack, this murder had witnesses. Across the street, 3 teenagers looked out of an upstairs window. They watched the killer lean into the taxi. Instead of running away immediately, he calmly searched the victim's pockets. Then, in an act that shocked investigators, he tore away a piece of Paul Stine's blood-stained shirt. The teenagers immediately called police. They gave officers a description of the suspect. For the first time, police had eyewitnesses who had seen the killer's face. Chapter 33. The police mistake officers rushed toward the neighborhood. Patrol cars surrounded nearby streets. The Zodiac should have been trapped. But then, a critical mistake occurred. The suspect description sent over police radio incorrectly described the killer as a black male. The eyewitnesses had actually described a white male. Because of this error, officers searching nearby looked for the wrong person. Moments later, 2 police officers reportedly encountered a white man walking calmly away from the area. Believing he didn't match the radio description, they allowed him to continue. Years later, many investigators believed those officers may have unknowingly spoken to the Zodiac Killer himself. Chapter 34. The letter that proved everything just days later. The San Francisco Chronicle received another letter. Inside was a horrifying piece of evidence. A section of Paul Stine's blood-stained shirt. No one but the killer could have possessed it. The letter mocked police. The Zodiac claimed officers had been only minutes away from catching him. He even described watching them search in the wrong direction. Whether every detail in the letter was true remains uncertain. But one fact was undeniable. The shirt fragment proved the writer had been at the murder scene. Chapter 35. Fear takes over San Francisco. The murder of Paul Stine changed everything. The Zodiac had attacked in a busy city. He had escaped despite a massive police response. He had mailed physical evidence to the press. And now, people realized no place felt completely safe. Taxi drivers became nervous. Parents warned children to stay indoors. Police departments across Northern California shared information more closely than ever before. The hunt for the Zodiac became one of the largest criminal investigations in the state's history. Chapter 36. The killer's greatest advantage. Detectives had fingerprints, witness statements, handwriting samples, letters. Crime scene evidence. Yet, somehow, the Zodiac remained invisible. He seemed to understand police procedures. He carefully controlled what evidence he left behind. Every time investigators believed they were getting closer, the trail disappeared. It was as if the killer was always one step ahead. Chapter 37. A city lives in fear. Weeks passed, then months. Every strange phone call, every anonymous letter, every suspicious person was reported to police. Thousands of tips poured in. Most led nowhere, but somewhere among them, the real Zodiac might have been hiding, watching, waiting, preparing his next message. Because although the murders had slowed, the letters were far from over, and those letters would become even more disturbing than the crimes themselves. Chapter 38, The Murders Stopped. But the fear didn't after the murder of Paul Stine. Something unexpected happened. The killings appeared to stop. Weeks passed, then months. There were no confirmed Zodiac murders, but investigators quickly realized the danger wasn't over. Because although the killer had gone silent with his gun, he had found another weapon. His words. Chapter 39. A Letter to the Nation. Only days after Paul Stine's murder, newspapers received another letter. Inside, the Zodiac mocked the police. He claimed officers had been incredibly close to catching him. He even laughed at the mistakes made during the investigation. The letter included another piece of Paul Stine's blood-stained shirt. It was undeniable proof. The writer wasn't pretending. He was the killer. California was horrified. The Zodiac wasn't hiding anymore. He was speaking directly to millions of people. Chapter 40. A Threat Against Children. Then, the Zodiac crossed another line. In one letter, he claimed he wanted to attack a school bus. He described a frightening scenario involving children. The threats caused widespread panic. Parents kept children home. School districts increased police patrols. School buses changed routes. Fortunately, there is no verified evidence that the Zodiac ever carried out such an attack. But his goal had already been achieved. Fear. He understood something powerful. Sometimes, the threat of violence can terrify people just as much as violence itself. Chapter 41. The 340 Cipher in November 1969. The Zodiac mailed another coded message. This one contained 340 symbols. Unlike the first cipher, no one could solve it. The FBI examined it. Military cryptographers studied it. Professional codebreakers spent years trying to crack it. Nothing worked. The 340 cipher became one of the world's most famous unsolved codes. For decades, it remained a mystery. Some believed it contained the killer's identity. Others thought it revealed future crimes. No one knew. Chapter 42. The FBI joins the hunt by now. The investigation had grown far beyond local police. The FBI began assisting agencies across California. Experts compared handwriting samples. Fingerprint specialists analyzed every envelope. Laboratories examined stamps, paper, ink, typewriters, anything that might identify the sender. Thousands of suspects were investigated. Thousands of tips arrived. Yet, none led to a definitive answer. The Zodiac seemed to disappear, only to return with another letter whenever investigators thought he was gone. Chapter 43. A Killer Who Wanted an Audience. Criminal psychologists later studied the Zodiac's behavior. Unlike many serial killers, he appeared to enjoy publicity. He demanded newspapers print his letters. He criticized police investigations. He boasted about crimes. Some experts believe the murders alone were not enough. He also wanted recognition, power, attention. Whether those conclusions are correct remains debated. But one fact is certain. Without the letters, the Zodiac might never have become one of America's most infamous criminals. Chapter 44. The Mystery of the 340 Cipher. For more than 50 years, the 340 cipher resisted every attempt to decode it. Then, in 2020, a team of private codebreakers from the United States, Australia, and Belgium successfully deciphered it. Working together, using modern software and careful analysis, they revealed a message that largely echoed themes found in the Zodiac's earlier writings. Investigators stated that the decoded text did not reveal the killer's identity, nor did it provide a direct clue that solved the case. The mystery remained, but one of the world's greatest cryptographic puzzles had finally been broken. Chapter 45. The Hunt Continues. By the beginning of the 1970s, police had interviewed countless suspects, collected mountains of evidence, examined fingerprints, compared handwriting, and followed thousands of leads. Still, the Zodiac remained unidentified. Every new letter reminded investigators of one painful truth. The killer was still out there, watching, reading the headlines, and perhaps enjoying every moment of the investigation. Chapter 46. The Biggest Question. By the early 1970s, the Zodiac's letters had terrified California. His ciphers had challenged experts. His murders had left investigators frustrated. But one question remained. Who was the Zodiac Killer? Police had interviewed hundreds of people. The FBI reviewed thousands of reports. Over the years, several names repeatedly appeared. Each seemed promising. Each had suspicious details. Yet, none could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Chapter 47. The First Major Suspect. One of the earliest and most discussed suspects was Arthur Lee Allen. Allen lived in Northern California. Over the years, several circumstances caused investigators to examine him closely. According to police records, Allen allegedly made disturbing comments to acquaintances. Some witnesses claimed he had spoken about hunting people. Others reported that he owned items which investigators found unusual. These claims increased police interest, but suspicion alone is not proof. Chapter 48. The search investigators searched Arthur Lee Allen's home more than once. They collected fingerprints, handwriting samples, personal belongings, firearms, documents. Everything was carefully compared with evidence connected to the Zodiac investigation. Detectives hoped this would finally solve the mystery, but the results created more questions. Allen's fingerprints reportedly did not conclusively match those linked to the Zodiac case. Handwriting experts also disagreed. Some believed similarities existed. Others concluded they did not. The evidence remained inconclusive. Chapter 49. Other Suspects. Arthur Lee Allen was far from the only suspect. Over the decades, police examined numerous individuals. Some attracted attention because of anonymous tips, others because of criminal histories, or because they happened to resemble witness descriptions. Several names appeared repeatedly in books and documentaries. But investigators repeatedly emphasized the same point. None of these individuals was ever charged as the Zodiac Killer, and no court ever determined their guilt. Chapter 50. The Problem with Witnesses. One reason the investigation proved so difficult was the quality of eyewitness evidence. Most attacks happened at night. Events unfolded within seconds. Fear affects memory. Different witnesses described different details. Some estimated the killer was younger. Others believed he looked older. Height estimates varied. Weight estimates varied. Even clothing descriptions changed. Investigators faced a frustrating reality. The witnesses were trying to help, but human memory is never perfect. Chapter 51. The DNA Question. As forensic science advanced, hope returned. Investigators wondered whether DNA might finally reveal the Zodiac's identity. Modern laboratories examined stamps and envelopes from the letters. Researchers attempted to recover genetic material. Some reports suggested partial DNA profiles were obtained. However, experts cautioned that the results were incomplete. Contamination, age, and uncertainty about who handled the letters made interpretation extremely difficult. As of today, no publicly confirmed DNA profile has identified the Zodiac Killer. Chapter 52. The Danger of Assumptions. Over the years, television shows, books, websites, and online videos have confidently claimed to solve the Zodiac mystery. Many point to one suspect. Others accuse someone entirely different. Professional investigators warn against this approach. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. A coincidence is not proof. A rumor is not evidence. And suspicion alone cannot solve a murder case. That is why, after more than 50 years, The Zodiac investigation officially remains unsolved. Chapter 53. The case that refuses to end. Every few years, another theory appears, another suspect is named, another headline claims, the Zodiac mystery is finally solved. Yet every time, investigators reach the same conclusion. The available evidence is not enough. The mystery survives, not because detectives stop trying, but because proving guilt requires far more than speculation. Chapter 54. A case that refused to die. The 1970s came and went. Then the 1980s, the 1990s. A new century arrived. Most serial murder investigations eventually end. Either the killer is caught, or the case fades into history. But not the Zodiac. His letters, his ciphers, and the mystery surrounding his identity continued attracting investigators from around the world. The case had become one of the most famous unsolved investigations in American history. Chapter 55. Science changes everything when the Zodiac committed his crimes. Forensic science was limited. DNA testing didn't exist. Crime scene investigators relied on fingerprints, blood typing, witness statements, and handwritten notes. But by the early 2000s, everything had changed. Scientists could recover DNA from incredibly small biological traces. Old fingerprints could be digitally enhanced. Handwriting could be compared using sophisticated software. Investigators suddenly had tools the original detectives could only dream about. Hope returned. Perhaps the Zodiac's biggest mistake had been preserved for decades. Chapter 56. The search for DNA investigators carefully re-examined the Zodiac's letters, the envelopes, the stamps, the paper itself. They hoped the killer had left behind saliva or tiny skin cells. Some evidence was tested multiple times as technology improved. Reports suggested investigators recovered limited genetic material. But there was a major problem. Many of the letters had been handled by numerous people over the years. Police officers, laboratory technicians, newspaper employees. Possible contamination made interpretation extremely difficult. As of today, no publicly confirmed DNA profile has identified the Zodiac Killer. Chapter 57. The 340 cipher is finally solved for more than 50 years. The Zodiac's 340 symbol cipher defeated everyone. The FBI military cryptographers, professional code breakers. No one could solve it. Then, in December 2020, 3 independent code breakers working together finally cracked the code. Their solution was verified by the FBI. The message contained disturbing statements similar to the Zodiac's earlier writings. But there was one disappointment. The cipher did not reveal the killer's real name, nor did it identify where he lived. The mystery remained. Chapter 58. The Internet Investigators. As technology advanced, a new generation joined the hunt. Online researchers, crime historians, former detectives, journalists. Thousands of people examined old police reports, compared witness statements, studied maps, analyzed timelines. Some discoveries helped clarify historical details. Others created new rumors. Professional investigators repeatedly warned, not every internet theory is supported by evidence. The Zodiac case became one of the most researched criminal investigations ever. But research alone could not replace proof. Chapter 59. The FBI's position. Over the years, many headlines claimed the Zodiac has finally been identified. Some stories spread rapidly across social media. Others appeared in books and documentaries. But the FBI and local law enforcement consistently reminded the public of one important fact. The Zodiac investigation remains officially unresolved. Numerous suspects have been investigated. None has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. The mystery continues. Chapter 60. Could the answer still exist? Imagine an old evidence box sitting quietly inside a police archive, untouched for decades. Inside, a single fingerprint, a forgotten envelope, or a tiny DNA sample overlooked years ago, history has shown cold cases once considered impossible have suddenly been solved, sometimes after 50 years, sometimes after 70. The impossible becomes possible when one new piece of evidence appears. That possibility is why investigators never truly stop looking. Chapter 61: The Legacy of the Zodiac. Whether he is ever identified or not, the Zodiac changed criminal investigations forever. His crimes transformed how police handled serial offenders. His letters influenced forensic linguistics. His ciphers inspired generations of code breakers. And his mystery continues to challenge every new generation of detectives. He wanted to become famous. In that, he succeeded. But fame is not victory, because history remembers him, not as a genius, but as a murderer who left innocent families searching for answers. Chapter 62: Facts, Questions, and the Enduring Mystery. More than 50 years have passed, yet the Zodiac mystery continues to capture attention around the world. Books have explored the case, documentaries have revisited it, podcasts have examined every detail, researchers have spent years comparing evidence, and countless discussions continue online. Over time, many different ideas have emerged. Some people believe the mystery has already been solved. Others think important clues remain undiscovered. But experienced investigators often remind us of one important principle. The more time passes, the easier it becomes for speculation to mix with documented history. So, before reaching the conclusion of this story, let's separate the confirmed facts from the unanswered questions. Chapter 63: What history confirms historical records agree on several important facts. A series of attacks occurred in Northern California during the late 1960s. Letters connected to the case were mailed to newspapers. Some included coded messages. Others contained the now famous crossed circle symbol. The writer also claimed responsibility for additional incidents. However, not every claim has been confirmed by investigators. Some letters included details that were not widely known when they were received. This strengthened the belief that the writer had direct knowledge of at least some of the events. These details remain part of the documented historical record. Beyond those points, researchers continued to examine the available evidence with caution. Chapter 64: Questions that Remain. As the years passed, many stories began circulating about the case. Some suggested authorities had already identified the person responsible. Others connected unrelated events to the mystery. Still others believed hidden messages revealed a real identity. Despite decades of study, none of these ideas has been universally confirmed through official evidence. This doesn't stop people from asking questions, but history reminds us that unanswered questions are not the same as proven facts. Sometimes, the simplest explanation is also the most reliable, and sometimes, history simply leaves us without every answer. Chapter 65: One of the biggest questions among all the mysteries surrounding the case. One question continues to fascinate researchers. Could investigators have spoken with the person responsible without realizing it? Over the years, hundreds of individuals were interviewed. Many were examined carefully. Some were ruled out through available evidence. Others remained subjects of continued interest. Looking back today, it's impossible to know whether one important conversation may have gone unnoticed. That possibility continues to interest historians and researchers alike, because history occasionally reveals answers. Many years after the original investigation. Chapter 66: Why some historical mysteries remain. People often wonder, why haven't all historical mysteries been solved? The answer is usually the same. Time changes everything. Documents become harder to locate. Memories become less precise. Physical evidence naturally ages. Investigative methods have also changed dramatically over the decades. Many techniques available today simply did not exist when these events first occurred. As a result, Researchers must work only with the evidence that still remains, and sometimes that evidence is incomplete. Chapter 67: The People Behind the Story. Behind every historical mystery are real people, families, friends, communities, lives that were changed forever. For them, this is far more than an interesting case from history. It is a story that has never received a complete ending. That is one reason the mystery continues to be remembered. Not simply because questions remain, but because those questions mattered, and still matter today. Chapter 68: The Search Continues. Could new discoveries someday provide additional answers? Many researchers believe it's possible. Historical archives continue to be studied. Old records are re-examined. Advances in forensic science continue to improve historical investigations. Occasionally, long-forgotten evidence leads to remarkable discoveries. History has shown that mysteries once considered impossible to solve can sometimes find answers decades later. Until that day, the Zodiac case remains one of the most discussed mysteries in American history. A story that continues to inspire research, careful investigation, and the hope that one overlooked clue may one day help complete the picture. Final chapter: The Ghost Who Left No Name. More than half a century has passed. The roads where the murders occurred look different today. The newspapers that first printed the Zodiac's letters have become part of history. Many of the detectives who worked the original investigation are no longer alive. Some witnesses have passed away. Entire generations have grown up hearing the name Zodiac. Yet, despite decades of investigation, one simple question remains unanswered. Who was he? The people. History must never forget. When people hear the words, the Zodiac Killer, they often remember the ciphers, the letters, the mystery. But history should first remember the victims. David Faraday, Betty Lou Jensen, Darlene Farron, Cecilia Shepard, Paul Stein, and those who survived, including Michael Mageau and Brian Hartnell, whose courage helped investigators understand the crimes. These were real people, with families' dreams, plans for the future. Their lives deserve to be remembered, not only because of how they died, but because of how they lived. What the Zodiac changed. The Zodiac investigation changed American law enforcement forever. Police agencies improved how they shared information. Crime scene preservation became more rigorous. Behavioral analysis gained greater importance. Cryptography became part of criminal investigations. The case also demonstrated how media attention could influence an investigation, helping police in some ways, complicating the search in others. Modern detectives continue to study the Zodiac investigation, not because they admire the killer, but because every mistake and every success offers lessons for future cases. The lesson of the letters. Perhaps the Zodiac's greatest weapon was not his gun. It was fear. He understood that terrifying millions of people could make him seem more powerful than he really was. Every letter, every newspaper headline, every rumor helped create the image he wanted. But there is one thing the Zodiac never controlled: the determination of investigators. Even after decades, detectives still review evidence. Researchers continue searching archives. Scientists continue improving forensic technology. The hunt never truly ended. Could the case still be solved? The answer is possibly. History has surprised investigators before. Murders once considered impossible to solve have finally been resolved through DNA, forgotten evidence, family records, or one overlooked clue. Could the Zodiac case follow the same path? No one knows. But hope remains, because every cold case is only unsolved until the day it isn't. The danger of false certainty. Over the years, many people have confidently declared, "I know who the Zodiac was." Books have been published, Television specials have aired. Internet theories continue to spread. Some are thoughtful. Others are based almost entirely on speculation. Professional investigators remind us of one essential principle: evidence, not confidence, solves crimes. Without reliable proof, no suspect can be declared guilty. That standard protects justice, and it protects the innocent. The final question. Imagine opening an old evidence box tomorrow. Inside, a forgotten envelope, a fingerprint overlooked for decades, or a DNA sample preserved against all odds. Would that single discovery finally reveal the face behind the Zodiac symbol? Or has the truth already disappeared into history? No one can answer that question today, but investigators continue searching. Because sometimes, history keeps its greatest secrets until one final clue changes everything. Final message. The Zodiac Killer wanted to be remembered. He wanted fear to outlive him. But history should remember something else: the investigators who never stopped searching, the victims who deserved justice, and the lesson every cold case teaches us: no matter how much time passes, the search for truth never truly ends. Outro. If you found this documentary informative and appreciate carefully researched true crime stories based on documented evidence, please consider subscribing to The Final Clue. Every unsolved case, every forgotten investigation, and every mystery reminds us that behind every file is a real person, still waiting for answers. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and never stop searching for the final clue.